This is a debt-based system. People are aware of it. It's nothing to do with the free market. Please understand that. It is nothing to do with the free market. I mean, if somebody said to you, my business plan is to lend over $30,000 to random people across the world, would you say that's a great business plan? You say no. Global debt, just Q3 2017, right? Just a couple of months ago, global debt was $233 trillion. Global debt was $233 trillion. And this is more than $16 trillion higher than the end of 2016. Now, the global population, about 7.6 billion, so the per capita debt is over $30,000. Pro tip, not many people in the world have $30,000, so it seems to be it's mostly you and me and the guy sitting next to you. So that is the reality. Now, why this debt-based system is so brutal is the debt-based system has fueled explosive population growth across the world. It is fueled, I need you to really understand this, because the real crash is not money, the real crash is population. So borrowing and printing and creating money out of thin air has created the illusion of prosperity. Now, if your 401k goes down, your retirement savings go down, your Bitcoin goes down, you're probably still going to survive, right? I mean, the prices of all of these things are kind of made up. Like people say, oh, Bitcoin is down and it's lost so much of its market value. It doesn't really mean anything. You could never have sold all the Bitcoins in the world at 25,000 ahead anyway. You couldn't have, because none of them would be worth all of that. It's all made up. It doesn't matter. It's all theoretical till you sell it, right? Right? You find out if the girl will go out with you after you ask her out. Theoretically, I could go out with all the women in the universe. So here's the problem: is the global population has grown on a debt-based system. And what happens when that system crashes? What happens is massive reductions in human life. It's horrible and it's horrifying. This is the agony. I hate that the world is going to have to go through this, but this is the agony the world is going to have to go through in order to throw off communist control over the means of production, which is the fundamental means of production, which is money. Letting the government control currency is giving the psychopath the only gun in town. I mean, this is just the way it works. And the population growth has been explosive. It's based on money printing. It's based on debt, and it's hollowed out. It's hollowed out. The house is built not even on sand, on a canyon and tissue paper, and not on rock. And the population growth that the world has experienced as a result of a debt-based, predatory, central banking monetary system, communist monetary system, well, the debt is up, the population is up, the debt crashes, the population is going to crash. I mean, I wish it were some other way. But for those of us who have been arguing against this horrible system for decades, it's not on me. It's not on me. And if you've been arguing against this horrible system for years or now, or if you're willing to do it from now on, then it's not on you. It's all the people who've rejected those arguments. It's going to be on you. And it's going to be absolutely horrible. Now, right now, there are tax cuts. Now, tax cuts, of course, move money to some degree from Wall Street to Main Street. And unless the spending is lowered, the debt is going to go up, right? Reagan did the same thing, right? He cut taxes and federal spending went up by 2/3 under his tenure. Now, people may get mad at Trump for not cutting taxes, for not cutting spending, but the reality is that massive amounts, if not most, of U.S. spending is out of control of Congress. It's mandated spending, and to try and change that is functionally impossible. And so there are no brakes on this particular debt train. Now, Trump does want to spend a lot of money, no question. He wants to spend money on the military, on veterans. He wants to spend a lot of money on infrastructure. Infrastructure, of course, is related to borders, because if the 20 to 30 million U.S. illegal immigrants weren't in the country, illegal aliens weren't in the country, then you wouldn't need nearly as much infrastructure spending, because they're using and wearing down that infrastructure while paying relatively little in taxes. So infrastructure payments is another form of income transfer from citizens to illegal aliens, because you wouldn't need to spend as much on infrastructure if it wasn't being worn down by the aliens. There is a battle at the moment between the financial classes and the productive classes. The amount of money that is stuffed into, I called it, this is like True News 2 or something like that many, many years ago. I called it the supercharged stock market. And that means that so much money is herded into the stock market because it's being chased by the baying hounds of the tax department. And the only place it can find security and safety is behind the fence of the stock market. So much money is being poured into the stock market with people who don't know what they're doing, don't want to be there, but are just trying to get away. Why are you jumping into the wolf pen? Well, because the tiger is chasing me and at least I have a chance. Why are you jumping out of the airplane? Well, because it's going into the side of the mountain and at least I have a chance. And the supercharged stock market has really messed up a huge amount of economic calculations. Now you have CEOs chasing stock prices rather than long-term sustainable productivity. And the amount of money that the government is herding into the stock market has created an entire class of monopoly monocle-wearing welfare whores who are feeding at the massive trough of free money created by the government at the expense of the poor, right? Especially inflation, which is the inflation of the money supply, only results in the inflation of prices, hits the poor hardest. And so the massive capitalist classes with their pig noses in the trough of the futures of the poor are created by the centralized planned, which is to say no plan, economic system. And it's very tough to change because the moneyed classes, the financial classes, they control the media, they control politicians, they control think tanks, they control academia a lot of the times. So it's tough to get the information out. Hopefully you'll share this. Now, with regards to the US, I mean, things are completely mental. US national debt is over 20,495 billion. And even back a couple of years ago, 2015, the US had debt and unfunded liabilities, right? The promises the government made that doesn't have enough money to pay for, $1.7 million per taxpayer. $1.7 million per taxpayer. I don't know about you. I don't have that under the couch. And this is so... Greece was bankrupt. Greece was in total disarray and it was toast. The debt in the bankrupt Greek state was $65,000 per taxpayer, $1.7 million per taxpayer in the US. Federal government is on track to borrow an estimated $1 trillion in the current fiscal year. That's 84% up year over year, and it's the highest level of borrowing in the last 6 years. The United States, of course, is going to reach the debt ceiling within a couple of weeks. Legislation is going to be required to continue the borrowing. This is in addition to the impending temporary spending legislation that is required to prevent another government shutdown. Because, when the government shuts down, if the government shuts down, it means that it becomes even tougher for the FBI and the DOJ to cook up falsehoods to get FISA requests. It's tougher for people to get audited. It's tougher for, more promises to be made to union workers, which can't be paid for. It's really, really tough for the government to do all the wonderful and good work it does when it's shut down. November 2017, U.S. household debt reached a record high of $13 trillion, including $8.7 trillion in mortgage debt, $1.36 trillion in student loan debt, and $1.2 trillion in auto loan debt. Americans owe an estimated $3.8 trillion in consumer debt, including an all-time high of $1 trillion in revolving debt, credit card debt. And this is where the important stuff is. Now, the fact that right after the Democrats got cornered with the release of the FISA memo, right, the memo about how the DOJ and FBI lied to the FISA court in order to get a warrant to spy upon the Trump campaign, members of the Trump campaign, which is not just their current calls. They can go all the way back, everything that may have been trapped or recorded in the databases throughout the United States back many, many years. So right after the Dems get cornered in this massive malfeasance, oh, look, there's a massive stock market crash. Well, I guess it beats a false flag attack of some kind. I suppose that's slightly better. But this is the reality of where the system is. Now, the fact that there's all this student debt is horrifying and horrible. And, people always say, well, where should you go to college? The real question is, why the hell should you go to college? To get programmed in hatred of the remnants of your freedoms in exchange for debt enslavement to infinity that can't even be discharged through bankruptcy does not seem like a very good deal for me. Also, if you're a man, you can live with false rape accusations from here to eternity. So this is the reality. And of course, we have a media and we have an academic class and we have a chattering intellectual class that is really concerned with nonsense trivia. Nonsense trivia. Oh, we got to worry about whether Doritos is negative towards women because they're too crunchy. And all of this garbage that floats around about privilege this and intersectionality that and gender the other. And compared to what is actually going on, the hole that is opening up between Western civilization, all of that other stuff is nonsense. So be alert, be prepared, don't panic, know what is going on, and know that the solution is very clear. The solution is always more freedom. The solution is always less coercion. The fact that the government has created a fiery, alligator-filled asshole moat around the greatest treasure of the free market, which is control of the currency, is all you need to know. Breach that, free currency, and free the world.